So, have you ever read stories in the Quran and thought, that's just ancient history? Well, today, we're going to flip that idea on its head. We're going to look at these passages as a mirror held up to see what went wrong with past nations. And then, we've got to ask ourselves a really tough question. Are we seeing that same reflection looking back at us today? All right, let's get into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with the biggest question there is. What are we actually here for? I mean, what's our ultimate purpose? Is it just to be successful? To raise a good family? To be a decent person on your own? The source material we're digging into today says nope, it's way, way bigger than that.
And that huge answer, it's all tied up in this one powerful concept, Khilafah. Now hold on, this isn't about politics or creating some kind of state. The way it's presented here is as a divine mission for all of humanity. Think of it like this. It's a mission of continuous, never-ending progress. We're supposed to be constantly pushing ourselves, our communities, and really the whole world to the next level, and then the next, and then the next. In this mission, standing still, that's the real enemy.
This is where things get really interesting. We usually think about righteousness in a very personal way, right? It's about my good deeds versus my bad deeds. It's about seeking my own salvation. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. But what this perspective argues is, that's only half the picture. The real goal, the big picture, is to see righteousness as your contribution to that collective mission we just talked about, pushing all of humanity forward together.
So what happens when a whole community totally loses sight of this grand mission? Well, the Quran gives us this incredibly detailed case study, almost like a cautionary tale. It's the story of Bani Israel. You see, they were chosen for this very same mission. They were meant to be the leaders, the role models for everyone else. But they failed. And the key for us isn't just that they failed, but how. That's where the lessons are.
And here's the thing. It wasn't some sudden dramatic collapse. It was more like a slow-moving spiritual disease. It started with just a tiny shift in how they thought about themselves, and it slowly spread stage by stage until it completely corrupted their entire purpose. Let's break down exactly how that happened.
So, step one. The first symptom of the disease was entitlement. That idea of being chosen started to feel less like a heavy, sacred responsibility and more like a permanent VIP pass. You know? It wasn't about the duty to guide humanity anymore. It just became a badge of honor, something to be proud of, instead of a call to get to work.
From there, the next thing to go was sincerity. The inner spirit of worship just started to fade away. It was replaced by empty rituals, going through the motions. Prayer and other religious acts turned into a kind of social performance. The main concern wasn't, how is my connection with God? It became, what will people say if they don't see me there?
And once that spiritual core starts to rot, you see the effects ripple out into society. It's a total domino effect. When sincerity dies, well, justice suddenly becomes something you can bend. Accountability, poof, it's gone. People ditch the long-term mission for whatever feels good right now. And maybe worst of all, they start knowingly mixing truth with falsehood just to serve their own interests.
All right, deep breath. This is where it gets a little uncomfortable. We've spent all this time talking about them, about what happened way back when. But now, it's time to actually hold up that mirror. It's time to stop looking at them and start asking about us. Because these stories, they were never meant to be just history lessons. They are warnings. So what's the first thing we see in that reflection? It's this major distortion of what religion is even for. Instead of being this powerful force for genuine guidance and making things better, it gets twisted into a tool for control. It becomes all about symbols and rituals, just to keep everyone marching in line.
I'm just gonna let that sink in for a second. Does that sound familiar at all?
This right here is such a sharp diagnosis. Think about it. When fitting in, having the right look, saying the right things, following the unwritten social rules, when that becomes so important that we're more afraid of getting canceled by our community than we are of answering to God, we've walked right into the very same trap. We start watering down the truth just so we don't get kicked out of the group.
And here's another reflection staring back at us, and this one stings too. It's when people use their religious practices not to be sincere, but to hide behind them. It's putting on a show of piety to cover up a reality of corruption.
So let's get specific. What does that actually look like in our world today?
Well, the source pulls no punches here. It talks about things like the smuggler who's always going for pilgrimage, building this reputation as a super pious person while his entire business is shady. Or the corrupt official who's always fiddling with prayer beads while taking bribes under the table. See, these outward actions become a kind of social armor. a shield that makes people hesitate to question what's really going on.
So, where does all this lead? What's the endgame for a community that's lost its purpose and is drowning in this kind of hypocrisy? Well, the Quran gives us a final diagnosis, and honestly, it's a terrifying metaphor.
And this is it, the final diagnosis. Their hearts became harder than stones. Now think about that. Even stones, as hard as they are, can crack open and let water, the source of life, flow out. But the Quran says these hearts became even harder than that. Totally sealed off. Nothing good could get in, and no life, no compassion could come out.
This table really just lays out the whole tragedy, doesn't it? On one side, you have what religion is supposed to be, this living, breathing force for guidance, for making things better, for moving forward. And on the other side, you have the corrupted version it became, a rigid system of control, full of empty symbols and rituals that have lost their soul.
And we have to get this straight. This isn't a few bad apples problem. The rot starts with individuals, sure, but it grows and spreads until it becomes systemic. It's like the whole community's spiritual immune system just gets completely compromised. It can't fight off the disease anymore.
Okay, so if the problem is systemic, then what's the solution?
Well, this is where the source material really challenges us, because it suggests that the way we usually try to fix things might be completely missing the mark.
A huge part of the issue seems to be how we're even taught these stories in the first place, right? We learn about them like they're just history lessons about some other people a long, long time ago. We shake our heads, condemn what they did, maybe feel a little smug and superior, and then we just turn the page. We completely fail to use these stories for what they're intended to be, a diagnostic tool for right now, to spot the same sickness in our own backyard.
And this question really cuts right to the chase. I mean, if being a truly civilized society is all about having good, righteous behavior, then how on earth are we ever supposed to get there if we won't even study the very things that make societies fall apart? And this leads us to the absolute core of the argument for what needs to change. You know, when we sense that something is wrong spiritually, what's our first instinct? To focus on ourselves. I need to pray more. I need to fix my own heart. And look, that's great. It's essential, but it's not enough. Me fixing my heart and you fixing your heart separately, that doesn't fix the broken system that we're all a part of.
So we're left with this final, challenging thought. When we look into the Quran's mirror and see the reflection of a nation that failed, what do we do? Is the answer just to polish our own little individual spot on that mirror and hope for the best? Or do we have a much bigger collective responsibility to fix the deep systemic cracks that are threatening to shatter the entire thing? That, really, is the question we all have to answer.